What would you do if your neighbors turned your sanctuary into a battlefield over a single blade of grass? In the rolling hills of Montana, where the sky stretched endless and the air carried the scent of pine and freedom, Elias Whitaker built his life. His ranch, a sprawling 200 acres of rugged beauty, was more than land. It was his heart, his refuge after a decade in the military. The fence he'd put up, weathered cedar posts strung with wire, wasn't just a boundary. It was a promise to himself. No one would dictate his peace again. But peace, it seemed, was a fragile thing when the Willow Creek Homeowners Association moved in next door. The HOA arrived with their manicured lawns and cookie-cutter McMansions, a stark contrast to Elias's wild, untamed land. At first, he paid them no mind. Live and let live, he thought. But the letters started coming crisp, white envelopes with the HOA's embossed logo. His fence, they claimed, was unsightly and violated their aesthetic standards. They demanded he replace it with something modern and uniform or face fines. Elias laughed it off at first. His fence was on his land, not theirs. But the fines came anyway, $200, then $500, then a threat to slap a lien on his property. The audacity burned in his chest like wildfire. Elias wasn't a man to be pushed. He'd faced worse than petty bureaucrats in desert wars. So he dug in. Late one night, nursing a whiskey by the fire, he pored over county zoning laws. That's when he found it. A loophole, a crack in the system wide enough to drive a herd through. The land bordering his ranch, where the HOA's pristine homes sat, was zoned ambiguously, technically still agricultural. With the right paperwork, he could petition to rezone it for livestock waste disposal. The idea was absurd, vindictive, perfect. He'd turn their manicured paradise into a legal dumping ground for manure. Let them choke on their own rules. The next morning, Elias drove to the county office, his boots kicking up dust as he handed over the petition. The clerk, a wiry woman named Marjorie with a penchant for gossip, raised an eyebrow but stamped the forms. "This'll stir the pot," she said, smirking. Elias just nodded. He wasn't here for chatter. He was here for war. Weeks passed, and the HOA didn't suspect a thing. They kept sending their letters, their fines piling up in Elias's mailbox like kindling. He paid nothing, said nothing, just waited. Meanwhile, he met Clara, a new neighbor who'd bought a small lot at the edge of the HOA's domain. She was different, quiet, with eyes that held stories she didn't tell. She'd moved from the city, fleeing something she never named, and kept to herself, tending a small garden of wildflowers. Elias liked her. She didn't care about his fence or the HOA's rules. She'd wave from her porch, her hands stained with soil, and he'd tip his hat, feeling a warmth he hadn't known in years. But Clara wasn't the twist in this tale. That came in the form of Tom Hargrove, the HOA president's brother, who showed up unannounced one crisp autumn evening. Tom was a lawyer, slick and polished, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. That was the moment Elias knew he'd go through with it. Tom wasn't just a messenger. He was a predator, sniffing out weakness. Elias saw men like him in war, men who thrived on control, who'd break you just to prove they could. He shook his head, closed the door, and called Marjorie. "Push the petition through," he said. She didn't ask questions. The county hearing was a spectacle. The HOA showed up in force, their president, Linda Hargrove, leading the charge. She was all sharp suits and sharper words, railing about property values and community standards. Elias sat in the back, arms crossed, his flannel shirt a quiet rebellion against their polished outrage. When the board approved his petition, the room went silent. Then Linda screamed, "This is outrageous. You can't turn our homes into a dump." The chairman shrugged. "It's legal. Take it up with the county." The fallout was immediate. The HOA's pristine lots were now zoned for livestock waste, meaning Elias could, in theory, truck in manure and pile it right up to their property lines. He didn't, of course, say wasn't that cruel, but the threat was enough. Property values plummeted. For sale signs sprouted like weeds. But victory tasted bitter. Clara stopped waving from her porch. That night he couldn't sleep. The ranch, his sanctuary, felt like a cage. He'd won, hadn't he? The HOA was crumbling, their threats meaningless now. But Clara's words echoed. He thought of her garden, her quiet strength, the way she'd carved out a small piece of peace in a world that didn't deserve her. And he'd taken that from her, just as the HOA had tried to take his fence from him. The irony was a knife in his gut. Then came the final twist, the one Elias never saw coming. Marjorie called him at dawn, her voice tight. "You need to get down here. Now." At the county office, she slid a document across the counter. Tom Hargrove hadn't just been the HOA's attack doe'd been working with a developer, quietly buying up distressed HOA lots at a fraction of their value. The rezoning, Elias's masterstroke, had played right into their hands. With property values tanked, Tom's developer friends were poised to swoop in, rezone the land back, and build a luxury resort. Elias's revenge had handed them a fortune. He drove home in silence, the weight of it crushing. His fence still stood, but what did it matter? He'd outsmarted the HOA only to pave the way for something worse. Clara's garden was gone. His neighbors, flawed as they were losing their homes. And he, Elias Whitaker, the man who'd sworn never to let anyone control him, had been played. He sat on his porch that night, Rusty at his feet, the stars indifferent above. He thought of Clara, of the wildflowers she'd tended with such care. He thought of the land, his land, and how he'd fought for it, only to lose something deeper. Freedom wasn't just about fences or zoning laws. It was about living with yourself, with the choices you made, the people you hurt. He'd won the battle, but the war had cost him his soul. In the morning, he walked to Clara's place, a seedling from his own land in hand to Karen, its delicate white petals a fragile hope. He knocked, but she was gone. Her house was empty, the for sale sign already up. He planted the flower anyway, in the ruins of her garden, and whispered, "I'm sorry." The wind carried his words away, unanswered. Nd.